Welcome to Python Intermediate 5, Iterators and Generators. Every video will have all slideshows and code available in the description. We have used iterators many times before, as most containers can be looped over with the for loop. For example, for element in 1, 2, 3. Python implements this behavior with a special method called iter, which returns an iterator object from the container that has a next method defined. The next method calculates the next item in the container to return for use in the for loop. When there is no items left, the iterator stops the for loop by raising the stop iteration exception. This exception tells Python to stop the current loop. So let's have a look at this quick example of what the for loop does on containers. So we have a container defined with the characters A, B, and C. We then get the iterator of that container using the iter method. We then can step through each one with the next method of the iterator until we hit the end and the stop iteration is raised. So let's try our own iterator on a container. For simplicity, we'll use Python's tutorials example, which is iterating over in a reverse order. So let's call our file reverse.py. So vim reverse.py. Okay, now what we're going to need to do is create a class. So what we're going to do is call our class reverse, and we're going to have an initialization for it. So def underscore init underscore, and it's going to take self as well as some data that we're going to be going through in reverse order. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to set up our variables. So self.data is equal to the data that we pass in, and then we're going to do a self.index, which is going to keep track of where we are currently, which is going to equal data, the length of data, so len data. Okay. Now we're also going to define our iter method. So underscore iter underscore, and that's going to take self, and what it's going to do is it's going to return self because we're going to define our next method inside our class. So return self. Now we're going to define one last method, which is going to be our next method, next. And that's going to take our self. Okay. Now, if self.index is equal to 0, then we're going to raise a stop iteration exception because we've reached the end of our data. Okay. If we haven't reached the end of our data, then we're going to get self.index equals self.index minus 1. And then we're going to return our self.data at index. And that's our reverse order iterator done. Let's write our main so we can test it out. So main, and what we're going to do is we're going to create our iterator called rev, which is going to be equal to reverse with the data to drapsicle. Okay, now we can iterate over this with our for loop. So for char in rev print char. That's our main done. We'll write our if. So if underscore name underscore is equal to main, then we're going to run main. Okay, let's save this and we'll give it a shot. So if we run our reverse, we get an error. What have I missed? Oh, I didn't put self.index inside that. bracket. So I'll open this up and I'll come back down here. I forgot to put a self for my index. Whoops. So, oops, self.index. That should fix that. Save that, and we'll run it again. And there we go. We get Dropsical backwards. So ELCISPARD. Okay. So we've also got generators. Now, generators are another way of creating iterators, but this time we do it in just a function. They're quick because they generate all of the background code for the next and iter methods. The core statement of generators is the yield statement. This saves the state of the iterator and sets the point to resume to when the next method is called. Okay, we've also got generator expressions. Generator expressions are a unique feature that Python uses. These allow iteration to be handled by Python in just a single line expression. In the next example, we'll look at making a generator and then look at doing the same task with a generator expression. Though generator expressions are uncommonly used, you may encounter one in another person's code and wonder what it's doing. Okay, so let's recreate our reverse iterator, except this time we'll do it with a generator. Okay, open my file back up, and I'm going to remove my class this time. We'll get rid of my class, and rather than use a class, I'm going to use a generator, which is going to have a function called reverse. So def reverse, and we're going to pass in some data to reverse. Okay. Now inside our generator, we're going to have a for loop. So for index in range. So we're just doing a standard for loop, but it's in length of the data -1, because we only want to go to the last element. We don't want to go out of bounds. And then we're going to go to -1, so that way we will go out of bounds and trigger and stop iteration. And we're going to go down in increments of 1. So that's going down in -1s. Okay. And now for each index, we're going to yield, which is kind of a return and a pause, kind of hard to explain. And we're going to return our data at index. Okay, and that's our reverse created. We don't have to change main because we called our function the same thing. So let's save this and quit, and let's run it, and we get the same thing out, except this time we used a generator rather than a homebrew iterator. Okay, so let's do the same thing again, except this time what we'll do is we'll do a generator expression. Okay, so I won't get rid of the function this time. I'll just add to our main. So a couple of lines down in main, I'm going to create a new variable called data, and that's going to store the string Dropsical. And with this data, what I'm going to do is print it out in a list, and then the list is going to be made up of the reversed data. So what we're going to do is we're going to get data I, and I is going to be for I in range length data -1, -1, -1, and close that all off. And that may look strange because we have a for loop inside of our code, but that's actually a generator, so it will generate all of the outputs and then put it into that list, and then we print that list out. So now if we save this and we run it, we get Dropsical out from our first generator, and then our second generator puts it out in our list. So ELCISPARD along the bottom there in our list, and that's a generator expression. Okay, so this concludes our look at iterators and generators. Extra code will be available in the code.txt in the slides folder, as well as a challenge task. Don't fear if you don't remember all of this. You can easily come back and rewatch this video to consolidate all the information. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Next we'll be covering modulating our code. Thanks for watching.